Meccano part number 1507, horseshoe magnet from the 1930's Electron set. Hi, if you want even more Meccano goodness, why don't you check out my Patreon channel? And please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. I post updates in the community section, not only for this week's Patreon build, but also for what I'm currently working on. Thank you, and back to the build. Hi folks, and welcome back. There is an art to logistics, the ability to get whatever you want to where you need it just in time. And like all supply chains, there are bottlenecks and things that need to be solved. This channel is no different. And the week of writing this script is a week when I'm changing some of what I do and how I do it. One of those things that is changing is Patreon. As this is not getting the traffic right now, I'm going to start to slow down on that. This frees up space to work on this channel and give me the ability to work on some other projects that I want to write for. I'm still going to build the models that I've been building for Patreon, as they were heading to YouTube anyway. But it just means that I can ease up on time requirements. And right now, I'm tired, not physically. I wish it was just physical. A rest would solve that, but mentally and emotionally. But the stress of that just leaves you feeling drained and empty. And this is the very bizarre thing that I've learnt in life. To gain energy and drive, you have to expend energy. It is a case of getting momentum building. Once you've achieved critical mass, you can just keep moving. But the art of logistics and planning has always been something that I love. And the way the puzzle knits together to give you the end picture. Whether it's planning a script, running a house, a business, or military operations. It's getting what you need at just the right time. It's knowing the plan is coming together, and I love that. This build is for a load carrier. I think it's very reminiscent of the Alvis Stalwart, an amphibious vehicle driven by the British Armed Forces from the mid-1960s through to the 1990s. But more on that later. Until the middle of the 19th century, with the invention of the traction engine, transport for any army was carried out by animals on land, or in the case of Britain, God bless it, the Royal Navy. But there was heavy cost associated with the army's mule train. Prior to the late 1870s, local people were used to drive the resupply chain. Post 1880, there was a movement to bring the mule corps directly under army control. During the Gallipoli campaign in the First World War, the front was supplied by over 4,000 mules and 2,500 troops to support those animals. Along with feed, water, the veterinary corps, farriers, and even barrels of horseshoes for the animals, along with the tack and harness required to carry the equipment. The mule corps in the British Army carried on well into the 20th century, with records of mules being used as late as the mid-1990s. The pack animal was the backbone of the resupply force for thousands of years, but we didn't just use mules. The first records of which date back to around 1350 BC, so nearly 3,000 years ago, but we also used camels and elephants. And even now, the mule has a place in our armed forces, as America is trying the S-MET, also known as the robotic mule. An 8-wheeled, uncrewed, all-terrain vehicle which is being heralded as the next generation of forward supply vehicles. But still, there are few modes of transport as unique as the mule, On average, it can carry around 20% of its body weight in dead weight, around 90 kilograms or 190 pounds in imperial, and be able to walk unrested for about 16 miles or 26 kilometers. And in a census carried out in 2003 by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, bit of a mouthful that, China topped the world as being the nation still using mules the most, very closely followed by Mexico and other Central and South American nations, mainly due to that one very unique feature that the mule has, the ability to go just about anywhere. And on the internet, there is a photo of a 20-mule team pulling a large wagon in Death Valley, possibly on its way up to Cerro Gordo to resupply the town. And the ability and endurance of these animals is something to hold in awe. I said that the traction engine began to replace the mule in the mid-19th century, but there was a drawback to the vehicle, and that was its need for water and fuel to propel it forward, and it needed more water and fuel than the humble pack animal did. So from the get-go, it was up against some stiff opposition and ultimately failed. But at the turn of the 20th century, another competitor stepped forward, the internal combustion engine. And while during the First World War the logistics supply was carried out in rivalry between the mule corps and steam-powered vehicles, the first of the internal combustion-powered load carriers began to make their presence known. The first army lorries were the beginning of the link that got rations and resupply to the front line in the conflict. With goods being unloaded at the dock, the lorry would transport the goods to the railhead, at which point it was transferred to the ROD, or Railway Operating Division, crewed trains of the Royal Engineers. At the other end, the supplies were either transferred onto light railways or mules as it made its way to the front. The last link in the chain was the equipment being carried to the front line on the backs of a ration party, an action normally carried out under the cover of darkness. The need for a vehicle capable of resupply in the worst of conditions was the post-war goal, seeing in both France and Britain the creation of either tracked or half-tracked vehicles. But some of the best known variants came out of Germany in the form of the Hanomag series of half-tracked vehicles. But yet at the end of the Second World War, Germany and many other nations, including the Allies, were still making use of the mule, with some 60,000 or so in use by the US alone. While Germany used over 1 million horses throughout the war, as only 42 of its 264 divisions were fully motorised. By the end of the conflict, America had all but fully motorised the Allied armies, with mules only being used in the Italian and Pacific theatres, where their unique ability to move through mountainous countryside could never be fully bested by motor transport. Post-war, the British Army required an amphibious truck to replace the ageing Second World War DUKWs, or ducks. Alvis was having great success with its Saracen armoured personnel carriers, along with the Saladan armoured car and Salamander airfield crash tender, all of which used the same suspension and drive chain. And they created the PV-1 Camion as a private venture. The word is French and translates as truck or lorry. It was an all-terrain vehicle and could do it all. Maybe even better than the Series 1 or 2 Land Rover, and I'm going to get some hate for that statement. The PV-1 was known by another name, the Beast. By 1964, the FV-431 was born and adopted by the British Army under the name of Stalwart, or Stolly by its crews. And the Stolly could do it all. There are some wonderful videos on YouTube of the vehicle swimming rivers after being launched Dukes of Hazzard style from the bank. And albeit minus its middle axle, I think this model captures the essence of the Stolly so well, with both fore and rear fording plates. This truly was a beast of a truck to build, and one that I quite enjoyed, all for its very basic challenge which it poses. The British Army still has horses on its operational strength, in the form of the Household Cavalry. Based at Hyde Park Barracks in London, the cavalry guards the palace as well as other royal buildings. Once a year they hold a competition, the Cavalry Black Pears Shoeing Competition, open to both serving and ex-serving army farriers. The teams of two have to shoe one half of a horse, a front and back hoof, in 1 hour by hand using only a forge and from flat bar. They have to shape the shoe to fit the horse, and then the second team has to do the other side. The shoes have to match perfectly to win first place. The competition helps to keep the skills alive in a world where we have increasingly turned our backs on old skills to old ways of doing things and relegated them at best to living museums as something to look back on as being quaint and amusing. But what have we lost by doing so? Because in so many ways our history holds a key that helps to unlock our future, and by ignoring the lessons we are doomed to repeat them.